everyone, and welcome to another episode of Home and Away, a podcast devoted to all things in and around the world of sporting Kansas City soccer. I am Drew Vanderploeg, joined once again, as always, by my good friend Cody Welton. This week on the podcast, Sporting Kansas City traveled to TQL Stadium on Saturday and were unfortunately unable to come away with the result, as Kevin Denkey scored 2 goals, one being an immediate Goal of the Year candidate, meaning Zorhan Bassong's first professional goal went wanting and Sporting Kansas City took a 2-1 defeat. Kerry Zavagnin made some interesting tactical choices in this game, leaving FC Cincinnati to attempt to dictate play much of the first half and limiting the space for them to play into, before opening up the game a bit after halftime as the team started chasing goals. Either way, the execution of the plan in both halves was actually pretty competent, scoreline notwithstanding. While the team did eliminate the big mistakes that have been a hallmark of this season, there were still plenty of areas for improvement. That said, they often appeared more to be limitations of the players themselves, rather than something coachable that can significantly improve over time. We'll talk a bit about the project Sporting Kansas City has in front of them, still from a roster building perspective, as well as the influence recruiting has on their ability to sign the players that can have the impact they need. Finally, we'll preview Sporting Kansas City's return home Sunday night for Sunday Night Soccer at Children's Mercy Park versus the LA Galaxy. It also seems quite appropriate that the Galaxy are coming to town on Star Wars Day. Cody, Kerry Zavagnin made it pretty clear that outside the final score, he felt this was the best performance the team has had this year. While I largely agree with him when it comes to executing the tactical plan and eliminating mistakes, it wasn't look like they necessarily look like a trophy contender out there either. So what did you think about the performance, and did you agree with his commentary that it was the best of the year?
I mean, I think that's a pretty low bar, honestly. But sure, yeah, I thought that they look more cohesive. I think that we're really starting to see, whatever it is that Kerry is wanting to put in place. I think we're starting to see that kind of continue to mature and develop. But I think, to your point, it's just obvious that there's a really hard ceiling on this team, and that's all almost completely due to talent, right? And so it's not. I think that they're playing at least more enjoyable soccer than they had been at the start of the season. They look like they're competitive and they're into it, and they were definitely, I thought defensively they kind of impressed me, even though they ended up giving up 2 goals. I mean, I thought that they did a pretty good job with Cincinnati. But as I was saying, their lack of talent is just really going to be impossible to get around this season. And so, we've known that, right? We've known that. You and I have been talking about that for at least a year. That the contract situations on the defensive side were going to make it really difficult to address that before after this season. And so it's just kind of a wait and see mode. I mean, I thought Jansen Miller had another pretty strong game, and I think that's the kind of stuff that we should be, heartened by, right? Manu Garcia was the best player on the pitch, and that included a pitch that had Evander on it, and
Kevin Denkey scoring a Goal of the Year.
Yeah, right.
And those things happened, and Manu Garcia was still better than both of them throughout the entire game.
Yep. And that's great, right? And I thought Shoppy did okay. I think that obviously we'd like
got some
to see
thoughts on Shoppy. We'll get there, but I've got some thoughts on him.
I mean, and Joveljic, like he's gonna have games like this, right? Like, he's a striker, and sometimes he's gonna score a couple of goals, and sometimes he's gonna go dry. He's not gonna score a goal every game, and so we just have to hope that they keep generating chances for him.
And they did. I mean, Joveljic had touches inside the box, especially in the second half, and so there were opportunities for him to do things. Joveljic is not a 9 like Denkey, where he will score a goal out of nothing. like just create his own goal out of nothing. Like that is not the type of center forward he is. He needs service. He needs passes into his runs. He needs, some opportunities, and I think that's okay. I don't necessarily have a problem with that. I think so. I think a couple things, right? It was definitely the most complete performance the team has had this year. We're front to back. They were connected to the plan the entire time. They were executing, maybe not at the highest level, but eliminating big mistakes, which has been a hallmark of this team all year. So that has to feel good. To your point, Jansen Miller, and I also thought Jacob Bartlett had a pretty good game in this one. And these are two guys who had a couple rough games coming into this, and they're young players that are going to have rough games sometimes, with limited pro experience.
Yep.
I mean, obviously Jansen Miller and Robbie Volliter aren't that different in age, but as far as experience playing professional soccer, there's a significant difference, and it's just there's going to be some acclimation process and adjusting, what your eyes see to how you should react to that is just something that is different at the pro level. You just have to see it, and you have to participate in it to develop that capability. So I think that from that perspective, yes, it was good. The other thing is FC Cincinnati's the top of the Eastern Conference table.
Yeah.
And the Eastern Conference is way better than the Western Conference.
Yep.
So there's something to be said for the fact that they were fairly toe-to-toe with this team for the majority of the game, even if they never really looked that dangerous. I mean, offensively, and there was definitely some missed connections and things, and I think in the second half they started and we'll talk about this with Kerry sort of shifting the tactic in the second half and how that affected their ability to tilt the field a little bit better and create some more chances. But they weren't out of this game at any point in time. They didn't feel like they didn't belong.
And they were Chicago.
There were there were plenty of games this year where it just didn't feel like they were of the same level of their opponent.
Yeah, agreed.
And I didn't feel that in this game. So I think from that perspective, I understand why most of the commentary around this team after this game was, it was a loss, but improvement, right? Mm-hmm. And I think something that we have harped on throughout the beginning of this season, especially with all the new players and the turmoil in the coaching staff and everything, is like, we just want to see this team improve. We don't want to see the same shit they've been doing for 2 years.
Yep.
And I think from that perspective, you can call Saturday a success. This wasn't a very improved performance from what we've seen this year. And they did accomplish a tactical plan that they were given. I'm not sure I necessarily agreed with it completely, but they did what they were told and they executed it well. And I think, or executed it at a competent level. I wouldn't call it, elite, but they executed it at a competent level. And it sucks that, like you said, it's a low bar to clear as far as it being the best performance of the year. And it sucks that I'm saying a wholly competent performance is the best performance of the year, but that is where we're left right now. And it is something to build on, in my opinion.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I mean, when you just think back, a month ago, as to sort of like the depths of despair that one felt when watching this team, like I don't feel that anymore. I don't really go into games expecting them to win, but I don't feel like I don't feel like I'm obligated to watch a terrible team, right? Just because they're the team I support. I feel like this is a team that can do some interesting things, and on a good day can be competitive.
For sure. So let's talk about that tactical plan a little bit. The first half of this game was pretty boring. Let's be honest. There wasn't a whole lot going on, but that was, I think, by design.
Agreed.
I think Zavagnin's tactical plan was, don't get sucked into Cincinnati's pressure. Don't do things that allow them to press you and create transition events, and just give them the ball and make them figure it out. And largely, it worked. I mean, yeah. I think we'll get onto the goal that Denkey scores to get it up 1-0 right at the end of the half. But I think the goal was, let's get into the half with 0-0, and then we can do what we did in the second half and take the reins off it a little bit and try and attack the goal a little more. And I think that that's a good idea. Like, especially even though we're 10 games into the season, Cincinnati can't press like the way they want to for 90 minutes. No team can. So let's take the gas out of their legs a little bit so that when we get into the second half and we start stretching and start pressing their goal, we're not in such a bad way if they get a transition event, and we can recover. And they did recover in the second half fairly effectively in several circumstances. That's another thing I thought was a big positive in this game. The transition defending was way better than we've seen all year. But it was a fairly boring affair. I think Cincinnati had, before Denkey scored that goal, I think, obviously it's the first shot from Engel and then the rebound, but I think they had like 3 shots in 41 minutes.
Yep.
So I mean that's executing a plan pretty well, in my opinion.
And not only did they not have a lot of shots, like they just looked kind of non-threatening and toothless in the first half.
And this is a team that has Evander on it, and Evander was nowhere in the first half of this game.
I mean, Zavagnin deserves kudos, like just for that, right? Just for finding a way to focus on Evander and take him out of the game, and you have to do that in this league, especially. You have to be able to address your opponent's best player and make other people beat you, and they did, and Denkey did, but Evander had a really anonymous game, and so that counts for something in my mind.
Yeah, I agree. I think that they were very focused on it. So it was interesting. Their pressure shape was more of a 4-3-3 than it was kind of the 4-5-1, 4-4-2 we've seen in the past.
It was like a narrow 4-3-3.
Yeah, very narrow, but it was very clear that the front three had the job responsibility of trigger pressing the center backs in the build-out phase. So like each one of them had a center back to trigger press, and when that center back was on the ball, they'd press. It created the space that Engel was able to find a lot, and they finally got the ball to him, the 40-something minute. But I at first when I saw the goal where Engel gets the shot and then the rebound, I was like, I mentioned it to Nolan, who I was watching the game with at the time, like Shoppy's got to retreat a little bit more there. Mm-hmm. I rewatched the game. Shoppy is leaving that open all the time. It wasn't a thing where he wasn't recognizing that he needs to retreat and cover that. It was very clear he was checking to see when the ball was going to go over to Nick Hagglund, because he was required to press Nick Hagglund at that point.
Right.
So he did not have the responsibility of retreating and covering wide space on the weak side, which is an interesting choice, honestly. Like, I guess, I mean, I don't know if Kerry had a scouting report on them or something that they didn't like to switch to Engel. But he was wide open the whole first half for that switch. And so I just kept waiting for them to do it, and they just didn't. And I think the Sporting staying extremely narrow the way that you were talking about, but also collapsing to their left side and using the left side sideline, along with keeping their narrow defensive posture, just didn't allow much space for Cincinnati to do anything. And Cincinnati is a team that likes to dribble forward with the ball. They're not a team that's going to unlock you a whole lot with progressive passing. So I think it was a smart tactic, honestly. And it did sort of inhibit Cincinnati's ability to create chances. On the flip side, what that meant was all of Sporting's chances were turnovers and flips to Shoppy in space. And they have good center backs that know to either foul him so he doesn't get past, or when he gets 1v1 with him, to just push him to the middle onto his left where there's help. And so there was just not much there, and I got to be honest, Kyrie Shelton was not offering him much as far as options when they were together over there. So Sporting wasn't able to create a whole lot out of this, but their defensive posture was very effective.
Yeah, and I think that is, I mean, that alone is something to I think celebrate. And you got to think also, when you look at first of all, just building from the back up, right? Like Celentano better than John Pulskamp by quite a bit at this point, and they've got 3 center backs: Hagglund, Robinson, and Miazga, and the 2 center backs Sporting started were Jansen Miller and Robbie Volliter. And if you
All three of those center backs would start over anyone on Sporting's roster.
easily, and I thought. I think you're a little worried going in of how Volliter would play, and I mean, I don't think he did great, but I don't think he was terrible either. And it was just
Yeah,
like
on rewatch, I was less mad at him than I was when I watched him.
right.
and that shows again, like the fan when you watch the game. When I watched it the first time, the fan watching the game sees stuff. I've got some biases about some players, the things that I don't like.
Yeah.
And you get really grumpy, and then you rewatch it. And you're like, actually, that shit I was mad about him about was actually not really his fault. It was because Denby got caught up field and he had to go left. Like there was. Anyway, so yeah, I don't think he had a very bad. I think he had a much better game than Joaquin Fernandez has had recently.
Like they just look competent, right? And that's at this stage in their rebuild. That's I think what we should be looking for, what we should be hoping for is that they look competent and competitive, and if they can steal a win here and there, like they should. I wouldn't have said this maybe like a week ago, and definitely not 2 weeks ago, but they really need to beat Galaxy this weekend. Like they have to, like Galaxy are terrible, and they're playing, and Sporting Kansas City is playing at home, and I think that it actually is potentially a really good matchup for Sporting Kansas City, and so it would be nice for them to not only put together a competent performance, but be rewarded with points for it.
I mean, if they do what I think they could do to the Galaxy, and we'll get to the preview here in a second, maybe they get another Galaxy coach fired. Like honestly, I mean,
he's not getting fired, man. Come on.
I mean, it sounds like Pooj doesn't want him to get fired, so maybe that's why they wouldn't do it.
I wouldn't fire him.
It sounds like Will Kuntz really likes him too. So yeah, I mean, I think that anyway. We'll get to that. We'll get to that when we get to the preview.
Yeah.
But I think the last thing we'll talk about, just the first half tactical ideas. Both the philosophy of trigger pressing, the center backs, as well as it seemed like every midfielder, it wasn't like quite man marking, but it was almost man marking.
Yeah,
it was like as soon as they received, there was a guy who was supposed to press that guy immediately.
That's great. Like that is sort of the tweak that the top clubs in the world have been utilizing, and Sporting has been like stuck in this sort of zonal marking type of thing, and that's why they get passed around like cones, because they are cones.
Did you see Jacob where I was really sure of it, because I wasn't sure at first, because you could definitely see it with the front three pressing the center backs, right? They each one had a center back to trigger press based on whether they had the ball. I wasn't sure about the midfield because, obviously sometimes responsibilities get passed off because they're not running a man marking scheme.
Right.
But as far as the trigger pressing, I saw Jacob Bartlett out of nowhere trigger press all the way up to the back line because he was supposed to have Pavel Buka.
Yep.
And that was when I knew, I was like, okay, this is actually like a thing where they are designed to follow guys and give them pressure as soon as they receive. And you're right, like this is just some stuff that is very common in the modern game that Sporting really hasn't evolved into yet, and we're just starting to see these like slight tweaks come into play that formation's the same, the personnel is largely the same, but what they're being asked to do is a little bit different. And we're starting to also see the competence of their execution increase as they get more time training. And I think that those are positives that, hopefully we can continue to see built on. But like, I really legitimately believe that is what's happening right now.
Yeah, when you see a more man-oriented press, like that's the solution for having these occasions when opposition attackers are just waltzing through the midfield with the ball and no one's putting pressure on them and stopping them because there's nobody around, right? In this context, somebody's there, and somebody's always going to be there to put pressure on the ball during pressing sequences, and that forces that forces the opponent to do something different than what they want to do, right? It forces them into their plan B, C, D, whatever, and that's what you have to do as a team playing defense. Is you cannot let the attacking side dictate everything to you.
They were also really, really, really diligent about not trying to sell out tackle Evander. It was like, get up in there, pressure him, eliminate his space, make him do something, as opposed to, making a wild movement or something like that he can play off of your momentum. It was very much just like close his space down. There was help defense in a lot of circumstances, and they just really denied him space. It wasn't like, hey, we're going to try to tackle it off him. No, we're just going to make it so he has to pass backwards.
Yeah.
And I think that it's just it sounds really simple. I know this sounds simple, but it is stuff that this team has just not been effective at.
You have to have somebody there to pressure the ball, right? And like, there's a difference between pressing. Like, pressing is it's a team-wide strategy, right? Pressuring, right, is what every player should do if they're the nearest person to the ball. Is provide pressure to get between the attacker and where they want to go, and provide pressure to again force them to do something different than what they want to do. And
it's not always. In fact, most cases, it's not about like dispossessing them.
No.
It is about making them make a decision earlier than they want to.
Absolutely. And or forcing a wrong decision, or forcing them to pass back instead of passing forward, or forcing them to pass instead of dribble, right? It's about changing the
They've run out of time, they have to do something, and sometimes they're going to do the wrong thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
And especially if your pressure is effective and driven in the right direction, and it was much more effective than we've seen. So yeah. I can understand from those perspectives why Kerry would call this the best performance of the year.
Yep, totally agree.
Additionally, substitutions made a difference in the game again.
Mm-hmm. Although to be fair, I was pretty down on the Bassong sub when he came in. I was like, come on, are you serious? But it all worked out. So.
And then he scores a goal. So
good for him.
Good for him. I mean, it was sort of a garbage time goal, and it was sort of irrelevant. But still, I think that Bassong had the right kind of energy for what was necessary to not only break Cincinnati down, but also to defend Cincinnati, right? So, I'm starting to see less and less opportunity for Memo Rodriguez to be a part of this team based on how they're playing soccer right now. It's just, he is much more of a sit on the ball in space and pick out a pass kind of guy. Mm-hmm. And that is just not the way they're playing soccer right now. I feel bad for Memo, because I don't think he's a bad soccer player. I just don't think he's he's a good fit for the way that Kerry wants to do things. I think Bassong makes more sense. The Bassong goal was wonderful and great for him and good for Zoe. Eric Tommy fakes a shot to open the space.
And everybody bid on it, because everybody knows that there's one thing he wants to do is shoot.
I was like, what? It was actually amazing. Like, I was like, he fainted a shot. I didn't even know he had it in him. And then delivers just a nice little ball there, and Zoe's just got to, it's not an easy shot to score on, and you just sort of blast it and hope, but it went in the goal, and that's it's a nice thing. I mean, Tommy in general was a really fun change of pace off the bench. I'm not sure I didn't expect it for Shallowy. I mean, to be fair, I don't think Shallowy had influenced this game that much. He had the 1v1 where he probably took too long to shoot, maybe. But I mean, I think also it's one of those situations like we talked about last week, and to Cameron's point last week about sometimes ball go in when Sporting scored 5 goals on 1.8 xG or whatever. And Shallowy had that beautiful touch on Pulscamp's long ball and then just slotted it in. This was not the greatest setup touch, and then it allowed Hagelin to close. And it was, if you actually watch it, the reason it goes right to Celentano is because Hagelin closes and is able to deflect it towards him. So, Yeah, I mean, this is what happens. I mean, Shallowy is not the guy that's going to get on the end of a bunch of 0.7 xG chances, right? Like,
Yeah.
I mean, he is going to have a lot of these sort of, you know, 1v1s, you better finish well to get it. And, he didn't. But yeah, I don't think otherwise he had influenced the game that significantly. Maybe a little bit more in the second half, and Denbei got a little bit more into combination. There was more stuff going on there. But so I guess from that perspective, I wasn't surprised. But also, it was like Tommy on the left. How's that going to work? And then they did bring a Frifa on late. And that was when Tommy moved back to the right. And all of a sudden, he influences the game with the assist to Bassong. So I think look, Tommy was good in this appearance regardless. It is so nice. I think they mentioned this on Shades of Blue. It is so nice to have a good player that can come off the bench in a game and affect the game.
Yeah, absolutely.
We can argue whether Shoppy or Tommy should be starting. I like this setup because I think Tommy is a much more cerebral player that's reading game situations and trying to actually manipulate them. Shoppy is a brute instrument that does one thing,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
And he will wear the fuck out of the guys he's running at and dribbling against for the 65 minutes or whatever he's out there, which is good, right? Like, that's good because then you can bring someone like Tommy in that will just, like, he's going to read their movements and whatnot and take advantage of them. And I think that value is actually good the way that it is. I'm not sure inverted if that works. Maybe it does, but I think the way that they're doing it right now is helpful. And like I said, it's so nice to have a good attacking player to come off the bench.
Yeah, I absolutely agree, and I think that especially on that right side when, and I think you kind of hinted at making this point that the when you have somebody like Shoppy running at you the whole first half and the whole when he gets subbed out the 70th or something.
Even later, right? Because it didn't. I don't think a FIFA came out until like 85 or so.
Right. But when you have that guy and you have to worry about him all the time because he's just constantly showing up, he's his average touches are the highest on the team in terms of towards the goal, right? Like his it's way lopsided towards him way up on the right hand side, and he's a constant threat.
Part of the reason his G plus is so high. But,
yeah. I know, yeah, absolutely.
The man goes upfield. There's no doubt about that.
He does, and but look, like this is not a square peg round hole type of thing, right? That we've seen in the past. This is like, I have this player. He's really good at this thing. I'm going to let him do his thing, and I'm going to find try to find a strategy that fits that into a winning team. And I think that is that's. That is something that Sporting Kansas City has been lacking, and something that they have now, at least more than they did, and I think that's wonderful. I think that I was really surprised, and you kind of talked about this, with the strategy in the first half, like how few touches and passes the center backs have. Like, I don't. Like, they barely touched the ball at all, and especially under Peter Vermes, the center backs were super high usage, like regularly some of the highest touches on the team, but they barely had any touches and barely had any passes compared to what they usually do, and that was, like I said, I mean, that was kind of surprising to me.
It's by design. I mean, this has fairly
Sure.
been by design since Kerry's taken over. He's playing long off goal kicks. There's just very little interest in trying to play out of the back. They started to recycle a little bit back there, but not a ton.
You don't have the players for it, so why do it?
Right. Well, but that was the point that I was going to make. Is like,
Yeah.
this is why you give Cincinnati the ball in the first half as well. There's no point in putting yourself in a position where you are trying to pass backwards against their press. Like, that's just not a really good idea. And even in the first half, when they would get possession near zone 14, they weren't near as aggressive about passing it backward as they used to be, where they'd reset and then try to go forward.
Yeah.
Like we've seen them do a lot since Kerry took over, where if they run up against the wall, they immediately go backwards pretty quickly and then try to go forward again. They weren't doing that in this game, very specifically because it invites Cincinnati's counter pressure. You don't want to do that, right? And or just their pressure in general. Like that is how Cincinnati looks. They close down, they make you pass backwards, they attack that backwards pass and create transition off of it. And Sporting is not a team that is equipped to pass through that. There was a point in the first half where they did pass back and they were having to try to play through pressure, and they ended up just having to kick it out of bounds, which is fine too, right? Like against a team like Cincinnati, that's fine. I don't think they meant to kick it out of bounds, but it ended up being a turnover out of bounds. And I think that like it's just the nature of this team. You don't have the guys to pull pressure forward and pass behind it. You just don't have them.
You don't.
So don't try. Quit trying to do it. And I think that that's a pragmatic approach by Kerry Zavagnin. Also, like you've got Sean Dyche's favorite goalkeeper in John Polskamp, who can kick it 75 yards into the opponent's end. You know what I mean? Like I swear to God, Sean Dyche if he watched Sporting Kansas City, he would be like, how do I sign this goalkeeper? I mean, is he coaching anybody right now? Anyway, but I mean, he would love that guy.
Absolutely. And the other thing is that we're going to talk about putting players in their best chance to succeed. I mean, the way that Zavagnin has been using Manu is I think really great, and it's giving Manu sort of license and freedom to move around the field.
He won 11 duels in this match,
and
dude.
he had 94 touches. Like
Jesus.
That's crazy. Like it's nuts, right? Like
he is the center of everything they do now.
He is, and
he should be. Like you watch him play, when you get him on the ball, good things happen.
Yep, absolutely.
So get him more touches, and he's shown, and he has a propensity for moving the ball forward, right? Like this is the whole concept of G+, expected threat, all those things is like, how good are you at moving the ball towards the goal scoring areas? And it's just his immediate mindset is forward. You don't see him back pass very often. Like he just will not do it. If his options are a back pass, that means there's pressure on his back and he's thinking about how to turn out of it, dribble through it, and then hit a forward pass. Like that's his mindset to the game. And that it's different than anything this team has had in quite some time. And it's very heartwarming, to be completely honest, because they legit have
a proper number 10.
Yeah, it's amazing.
And when you play Radia instead of Jake Davis, right, in the midfield, then you're just kind of automatically very double pivoty, right? And
I felt Radia. I mean, Radia's fine. He's just not a TAM player, man.
No, he's not.
Like, can you imagine having like Mark Delgado instead of Radia?
That would be amazing.
But it's like okay. Somebody like that instead of Radia.
Dude, Gaston Brugman would be freaking great. Oh my God.
And all those guys make less money than he does. And it's just like, what the fuck is going on? Anyway, this is a separate conversation. We're going to get there. We're going to get to this.
About that again. But I mean, it's just, like he didn't have a great game. He didn't have a bad game. He was just kind of okay. But like if you free Manu and let him sort of, go where he wants to and needs to, then Radia doesn't have to do that. Like he doesn't have, like, salary aside, right? If you could ignore his salary, like he doesn't have to be a special player. He can just go out there and do a job and let the special players cook.
He does have a good eye for a slipped ball.
Yeah.
He just never puts himself in a position to do it because he's always facing his own goal and passing backwards. Yeah. Like if he were to think in that way, I think that when he turns around and faces the opponent's goal, he actually does good things. It's just it's not in his mindset to do it. And I think this highlights something that I've got here in the rundown, which is like there's a few guys on the team still that have that very risk averse sort of Vermes philosophy of like, if it's not there, pass it back.
Yeah.
And candidly, I mean, we just covered Radia. Like, obviously, he's one of them, and Shelton is another one of them. To be completely fair,
Yep.
And like, I watched him in the first half of this game so many times, and I just don't see any rapport with him and Shoppy. Joe Lowry, like, in his weekly rundown of the Western Conference, highlighted a play in like the first 10 minutes where, like, their off-ball positioning is not in a positive way to create angles for passing delivery. It improved a lot in the second half. That's one thing I will say. There was an obvious intent for Shelton to underlap Shoppy and, like, give him a place to pass to pull, so those defenders couldn't just sit on his left foot. Like, there was a place for him to pass. We saw Shelton actually get one of those passes, get to the end line, and hit a really dangerous cross. So, like, I think there is opportunity there for them to do stuff with it. But in the first half, man, it was just like a whole lot of, like, standing around, and, like, I saw so many opportunities for Shelton on the ball to slip Manu centrally and then run off that movement, and he just won't hit that pass. Like, the defender's within 3 yards of him. But if you play it to the right foot, Manu knows what to do with that pressure, right, and he'll spin out of it if necessary. And then and also Manu's so quick with one-touch passing, like, he's going to play you immediately.
Yep.
And there's still some missing connection there, some rapport, and candidly, Kyrie's been injured for most of the time that Manu's been here. So, like, that might have
he's not a right back.
Yeah, he's not.
I mean, he's not a right back.
He was very good defensively in this game. I will say that. Yeah. Like, his defensive chops were very good in this game. And I think it goes back to the conversation we were having last week about should he be alongside a back three and playing in a 3-2-5 to give them a little bit more better, defensive posture. I don't know. Regardless, it was not really great with the connections on the right side of the offense in the first half.
Yeah.
But I also feel like they intentionally neutered that in order to have good defensive posture.
Yep, absolutely.
And so, it is what it is.
Yeah, and that is the thing to keep in mind is that this is a player who's not going to be on the team next year in probably all likelihood, right? And
him or Radia, I would be very surprised if either one was on the team next year.
Totally agree. And so if you can just, like, close your eyes and imagine like a proper professional right back in that position, things look maybe a little bit different, and so, like, it'll get there, right?
Brody played like 5 minutes in this one, so yeah. Like, I didn't really think much of it, but I mean, I don't know how you evaluate him playing 5 or 8 minutes or whatever it was.
I don't think you can.
So second half change. The team starts pressing much higher. One of the things I actually was frustrated with in the first half is when the front line would press, we had that same issue that I talked about before, where it wasn't coordinated and there's like 40 yards between lines, and I'm like, whoa, what's happening? Thankfully, at least after it happened once, the front line was like, okay, we're just not going to press that high. But yeah, the pressure behind wasn't very good. In the second half, they came out with intent to move their lines higher. And it was much more coordinated, and you saw like a very well executed, coordinated press. And for the first 15 minutes of the second half, they basically played in Cincinnati's defensive half, both with their pressure and their counter pressure. Like, they came up, they'd get a turnover, they go forward, they'd lose the ball, they'd counter press, they'd get the ball back. Like, it was actually fairly well executed. And I think it was the right time to do that. Like I said, after Cincinnati's got a half on their legs, it's a little bit harder for them to use your pressure against you. And I was fairly happy with what they were doing. I mean, obviously they were chasing a goal at that point, so I think that the game state also had something to do with why Kerry made that change. But he made a change. Like, we're down 1-0 at halftime. What good does it do us to just sit back and only lose 1-0? Like, let's try to score a goal, and that's what they did.
Yeah, I that's great, right? Like, what else can you say? Like, you have to do that. You have to take.
But
that.
It's wild that we have to say that, because in the past that wouldn't have happened.
No, it would be stick to the plan, and if you can eke out a point on the road, that's enough, right? But
that guy probably is sitting at home going, "See, look, if you had done that, then Bassong would have scored and it would have been a tie." Like, that's what he believes would have happened.
Right.
And that's And I don't like a game state changes everything, so you can't actually correlate any of that stuff. But I just think that it's something that we saw halftime changes, and they were organized halftime changes. Like everybody knew what their responsibilities were. It wasn't like there were guys out of position. And I think that's what Kerry's getting at by saying this is the best performance of the year.
Yep.
Not only did they switch tactics at halftime, everybody knew their job. And they, for the most part, completed their job very well. And if somebody got caught out of position, there was a teammate there to cover for them. The number of times I saw Jacob Bartlett rotate back to center back when one of the center backs would go up for a challenge. Yeah. Like, it's just,
He's doing a very good job of that. He does that multiple times every game, and it's great.
Logan Ndembe coming across from left back all the way over to create a tackle when a bad turnover happened. Like there were a number, like Logan Ndembe makes a tackle on Evander on the right half of the field after a bad turnover happens. And like that is the kind of stuff that we've sort of bemoaned, is that mistakes get compounded as opposed to teammates sort of covering for them, and that was the big thing that I noticed on this one. I mean, obviously Kevin Denkey gets the bike and whatever. Like
that's a ridiculous goal. And
what the fuck do you do?
Right?
Like, what do you do?
You can't do anything. And honestly, the positioning on that was fine. Like, I mean,
it was actually good set piece defending for once.
It was. So whatever, those things happen.
Shit happens, dude. I think I have it in here. I'm just like, the Denkey's good. Sometimes shit happens. Like, it's just the way that it is. But I both the change to going a little higher and possessing the ball deeper and opening themselves up to transition, as well as the transition defending, that was the stuff that really excited me, because the team did start to create more opportunities because they were playing in Cincinnati's half a lot more and using counter pressure a lot more effectively. But they also transition defended a lot better.
Yeah.
And like I said, I don't know if that's something that's going to continue, but it's certainly an improvement over what we've seen before. So it's weird, like we're talking about a 2-1 loss in this way, but I think that the point that we made all year is like we want to see progress, and I saw that. Like that's the thing, is like I think you can be clear that there's progress made.
Completely agree.
That said, the coach can only do so much. Right? Like this roster is what it is. Right?
It is. That's true.
It is what it is.
And we'll say that probably every week from now until December.
But I think before we get to tactical corner or recruiting corner or whatever we're going to call it this week, I do think it's important to say that I think this team is still going to get results from time to time, and they're going to be a fun soccer team. Like I see that part of it, and that's what I'm mostly concerned with right now. Is first of all, not losing these DPs that you spent millions of dollars for, as well as keeping these young players engaged and improving. Mm-hmm. So far, we're seeing that. So, like, as long as that continues, I think that you're gonna have some joy sometimes too with this team. And maybe it's not a playoff team, or maybe it's one that leaks into the playoffs in 9th or something like that, or whatever it is. I think we said before the season, like the range is about like 9 to 12, right? I mean, I think that's still probably the range.
Yeah.
But the fact is, they are looking like a team that makes more sense than they had a few weeks ago, and I think that's a positive, and we just want to keep building on that. And I think that they're looking like a team that is at least fun to watch.
Yeah.
And that's all you can ask for as a fan.
And they're doing interesting things also, right? Like I think it's clear that that solutions need to be found, but they're not doing the same thing week in and week out, expecting the solution to just manifest, right? Like the having Bartlett take corner kicks is a perfect example. Like, who saw that coming? Like, I had no idea that was like a thing at all, and
out of nowhere, he was taking all the left side free kicks.
Yeah.
I think there was the one sort of training ground one where it looked like he was going to take it, and then Manu took it, and it almost turned into a good shot, actually, early in the game. But other than that, like, Bartlett was taking all the right-sided kicks. Now, hitting floated back post corners. Although Bartlett doesn't do it. When he hits it back post, he rifles it in there. Yeah. He doesn't hit that floated thing that Shoppy does. So there is an improvement in that regard. But yeah, who the hell knew that all of a sudden Bartlett was going to start taking free kicks and taking set pieces, and he's actually pretty good at it. And so of course, like, you can see the ball he can hit. That's why he's taking them. But I mean, that just shows that there's a coach there constantly evaluating.
Yeah.
And seeing what opportunities he has, and giving players opportunities to show what they can do.
Well, it's not one of those things like, you're the veteran and the captain on the team, so you can take all the corner kicks even if they suck, right? Like, we're not stuck in that malaise any longer. And so, if someone's not doing the job,
or just putting so much of an onus on training. Like, I know training is important. Like, you can evaluate players and see what they're doing in training, but just because a guy takes really good spot kicks in training doesn't mean he can do it in a game. And if you have 5 games in a row of shitty spot kicks, maybe he's just not actually good at this.
Right. So and that's the thing. And we've seen Zavagnin do that right away with Eric Tommy, right? Like if you're not getting the job done, we're going to try something different. And that's okay. Right. And we'll find a way.
Eric Tommy's a consummate professional. He'll bring his ass on there for half an hour and absolutely wear your ass out. Like, he doesn't, like, no one wants to be the super sub, so to speak. But that doesn't mean that he's not going to go out there and play for the team. Like, that is definitely something he has in spades, and he will continue to be a leader in that way. So I don't think that this is, the nice thing is you don't have to worry about losing Eric Tommy.
Yeah.
Playing in this way. Like, he can see that he brings value to the team. Maybe, I'm sure everybody wants to start and play 90 minutes.
Yep.
But also, like, he recognizes that he's providing value to this team. The guy's got like a goal and 2 assists off the bench now. So, like, he's obviously very effective.
So it's funny, like, he's like such a try hard guy, and when he's starting, especially if he's like starting and a captain, it's like he does try too hard, right? It's like, he's trying to do too much. And when
they mentioned this on Shades of Blue, it's almost like, especially when the team is down or not playing well, he feels it upon himself that he has to pull them out of it.
It never works, though.
No.
But that energy coming off the bench is actually, like, really good.
Extremely
and necessary.
Valuable.
Yeah,
Really valuable for sure. So, but still, the team is what they are from a roster perspective. So Mike Burns still has some work to do.
He does.
There is opportunity with the Willie Agata trade. As was reported by Daniel Sperry, that at least the $500,000 in GAM that they're definitely getting is GAM that has to be spent in 2025. So it is some of their 4 U22 roster path construction GAM that they get, that RSL gets, that they traded. It's possible also that at least that the 2025 GAM that they got from Toronto for the international spot is also U22 GAM. It could be. So if that's the case, you're talking $675,000 of that they have to spend, as well as what was in the MLS release that they have like 1.3 million, 1.28 or whatever it was million in available GAM. So we're talking $2 million in GAM they could spend this summer.
Yeah,
I feel like a fair amount of it is must spend GAM. Depending on what they do with the roster model. I don't want to get too far in the weeds about how this stuff is reported and whatnot. Like, let's talk about what numbers we know, which is they do have $2 million in GAM. We know that for a fact that they have that. We know that at least a fair portion of it must be spent in 2025. So the feeling I'm getting is that the club is still expecting to be fairly active in the summer window. They did obviously sign Santi Munoz. We're going to talk about my scouting report on him here when we get to Potpourri, but he's on loan, so there's no commitment to him long term. There are so many players, as we've discussed already, that are going to be out of contract at the end of this year. Many center backs, Nemanja Radoja. I think Jansen Miller is probably the only. Jansen Miller and Ian James are the only center backs that are under contract next year. And Miller might even be, I'd have to look, but Miller's might even be an option. I'm not even sure that next year's guaranteed for him. That's not me suggesting that they'll move him, but move on from him. But like as far as flexibility on the back line, I don't think anyone outside of Ian James is actually under contract next year.
Mm-hmm.
So Brody is definitely not under contract next year. Shelton is not. Radoja and Fernandez. Fernandez has an option, or Radia is out of contract. Fernandez has an option. Rosero's out of contract. And Denbe and Leibold are out of contract. Volader is out of contract. Like all of these players can be moved on from. So I think that will all of them leave? Probably not, right? Like that's a lot of players to replace at once. But that said, with a look towards improving the defensive performance, you have an opportunity to bring in a fairly significant player, right? You could bring in a mid to high TAM player. Now, that gets a whole lot of people a little bit concerned because, candidly, this team has been ass at signing TAM center backs for quite some time. Like, it's just not really been something they've got a long list of successes at. So
it's hilarious that you signed Jansen Miller, and we're all like, "Yeah, Jansen Miller," and he is not close to that.
Well, it sort of speaks to the fact that domestic center backs are still really valuable in MLS.
Yeah, that's true.
But the problem is, signing a domestic center back in MLS means you're trading for them or you're signing them in the off season, and not all of those options are that great.
Right.
Was Aaron Long out of contract? Yes, but was he going anywhere but LAFC? No. Was the same thing with Eddie Segura. Like both of those guys were not going anywhere than where they went. Maybe Jack Elliott. Jack Elliott went to Chicago. Maybe he was available, but who knows what the options were there. But I think it's fairly clear that the club needs a central midfielder and a center back. Like if those are the areas where they're really focusing in that sort of middle roster spending area, it's central midfielder and center back. They can bring in some U22s. They could bring in a DP even if they wanted to. I don't know if it's worthwhile to try to predict those things happening, but if I'm Mike Burns, I'm also trying to see how I get that guy signed and into camp so that I can register him as soon as humanly possible in late July when the window opens. So I think that was the big issue in the past is a lot of these signings would happen. Like Joaquin Fernandez got signed in like mid-August last year and then came in and had fitness issues and barely played any games. Yeah.
That guy had fitness issues? Weird.
Yeah, that's the other thing. Is like I think Mike mentioned this. Mike Kuhn mentioned this on the Discord. Like, staying healthy is a skill.
It is, and it's absurd, right? Like
Rosero and Fernandez, they can't stay off the training table, man.
They got to be gone. I mean,
if they're good or not, it's not even relevant at this point. If you're spending $1 million a year on a guy who can only play 20 games because he's just on the training table the rest of the time,
yep,
you just can't do that, especially center back. Center back's too important,
and especially in MLS, where you don't have squad depth, right?
Right, but consistent MLS, consistent center back pairings are really important, man.
Absolutely,
really important for a good defense, and you can't just keep swapping people all the time and expect it to work out. So
just ask Ange.
Yeah, no shit. Jesus, don't even get me started. Well, and he intentionally rotated those center backs because he's much more. I mean, yes, we got thrashed by Liverpool on Sunday. Yes, Cody, I'm aware. Congratulations on your Premier League title. Did not care about that game.
No.
Could not get relegated from
Guess
Premier
what?
League.
The players didn't either. No, I don't think anybody cared about it.
You could tell. No one gave a shit about that game. They care about Bodo Glimt on Thursday.
Yeah, as they should.
Europa League semifinal means a hell of a lot more than finishing 15th instead of 17th in the Premier League.
Amen.
But a key part of getting these players in is the recruiting and scouting process. And that is where I still have some concerns.
Well, we were promised such great things, right? We had this, we built this training facility and we had all these things. It's like, and as I think you pointed it out recently, Peter Vermes famously said, like, if he could just get players to come here, they'd sign. Well, that has never manifested. It's never happened, right? Like, So at some point, you can't rely on the facilities or any of that, and you just have to like
Convincing
spend
a
some
guy to get
money.
on a plane is a skill in itself, though,
Absolutely,
right?
it is.
And I
Yes.
think that's part of the conversation I want to get into. So, this is
There's
your weekly. Go ahead.
sorry.
Go
Go
ahead. Go
no,
ahead. Go
please.
ahead.
You do it.
Okay. I was well. No, I was shifting gears. So if you had something, go for it. No.
I was just gonna say that there's one recruiting card that they should use over and over again, and I
Oh
don't know
yeah,
if they're using
they
that.
definitely need
But
to pull that one out.
I mean, come on.
That's a good point. We need to get to that for sure. But what I was going to highlight, and this is your weekly reminder to participate in the Discord, Home and Away Discord. The link is in the show notes. A bunch of the listeners are on there, and we interact fairly regularly. Nolan had dropped in the link to Julian Gressel's podcast this week because, as we know, he just joined Minnesota from Inter Miami, which was kind of an eyebrow raiser because everyone sort of expected that he only wanted to be on the East Coast. He even discussed it on the podcast. Like it was well known that that's what they wanted. His wife's family is on the East Coast. That has a lot to do with it. They have kids and his wife's business. Like just there's a variety of things like personal wise that was important to him about doing that. And he sort of personalized a little bit like what it's like to be a professional soccer player and being sort of mercurial and moving around and like trying to find places for your kids to go to school and for your wife to settle into whatever work she's doing. And it's like none of these guys are, I mean, none of them, not none of them, but most of these guys, I would say 95% of these guys are not making the kind of money where like they can afford nannies and all kinds of other stuff. Or, I mean, even if they could, it's not like a good use of their money while they're like, they have this short window with which to earn it. And so he discussed kind of like what the conversation was like as far as going to Minnesota. And like I said, it was an eyebrow raiser because like that was not anywhere on the scale of like teams that were that interested. And he very clearly discussed the recruiting process they went through, how they tried to sell him on the Minnesota area, how they had the right people in place to help with transitioning to Minnesota, helping them find a place to stay, helping them find schools for the kids, helping them like all of that kind of like background stuff, which is actually really important. Like you have to get to know these players. We sort of think of this as just sort of a transaction, kind of like you're in Football Manager. It's like, here's his salary demands. Here's my salary budget. Did I make it work? Okay, cool. Signed. Right? Like externally, that's how we look at it. These are human beings that have individual needs related to their family, related to their personal life, related to whatever that is going to drive how they make these decisions. And he even Julian even discusses like Miami is very much not that and he was clear to say it's like it's not like one thing's right or one thing's wrong. When you have Lionel Messi, you can get away with like not spending so much time on floofing it up in the other areas, right? But Kansas City does not have that luxury. They can't afford to be very cold and just sort of businesslike about how they go about signing players because they are trying to attract players to a place that we know it's great. We know that when you get here and you see it and you see the facilities and see all the stuff, you're going to love it. But the average professional footballer, especially even when looking at coming to America, looks at about 17 other spots in the country that they'd be more interested in first. So like it is a legitimate thing the teams need to have in place. I firmly and Gressel talked about Columbus specifically as well because he was there in Columbus and he talked about the stuff that they did, and it speaks a lot to how they're able to sign Cucho Hernandez and Diego Rossi and whatnot in Central Ohio because they've put so much effort into that recruiting process and making players feel comfortable and making them feel supported, and that is something that. I don't know that Sporting has in place. I mean, I know they have some staff in place to do this. I don't know how robust it is. And I do think that there's an opportunity there that they need to look at. And this goes back to the Peter Vermees conversation where Peter was so singularly focused on controlling everything that he didn't delegate enough of this kind of work
Right.
to the right people that were effective at it. And he was so concerned with sort of controlling every aspect that there weren't enough people that he trusted to manage these types of situations for him. And as a result, this team is left, from a staffing perspective, a little bit, they're left at a disadvantage comparatively. And I think that this is something that, like, if you're going to be a small market team, so to speak, or whatever you want to call it, but not as a significant environment that people are super focused on, joining. It's not like when you go approach Manu Garcia when he's living in Greece and say, hey, you want to come to Kansas City? He's like, what? Like, those guys, I mean, and I want to be clear about this. I'm not shitting on Kansas City, but we need to speak about the realities of whether these guys even have any fucking idea what it is.
So most people don't. Like even people who are residents of the United States, many of them don't realize that, like, Kansas City is like a real city, right? It's not.
They think it's in a cornfield in Kansas, right, in most cases,
and they think that like they. My son is.
I guess it'd be a wheat field, but you know what I mean,
right? My son's girlfriend is Vietnamese. She lives in Vietnam, and like she doesn't like. She thinks that we ride horses and rope cows and stuff, and some of us do, but that's not like it's Kansas City is not.
It's a fairly small part of the population that does that in the state of Kansas. But I think that, like, being willing to accept that and accept that that's what you need to do in order to be able to attract these types of players, because all of the stuff about trying to sign Ronaldo and, the story that Vermees has talked about trying to sign Zlatan, and like I've heard stories about Van der Vaart. I've heard stories about a variety, like, seriously, like there's stories out there about like home run swings they've tried to make. Griezmann, all of these type of things. Like, there are home run swings where they've made contact and tried to see if they could make it work. None of it ever got anywhere well, I mean, some of those didn't get anywhere because those guys were just never gonna come to Kansas City. But that it is, if you're going to get Kevin Denkey, right? Mm-hmm. If you're going to get Evander, if you're going to get some of these like key players that can really change games, you have to be able to recruit them effectively.
Yeah.
I promise you, Kevin Denkey didn't just come to Cincinnati because they paid the most. Like, I promise you, there was a significant recruitment conversation that happened.
Yeah.
And like Gressel even talked about it. I encourage you to watch it on YouTube or listen to the podcast, because he even talks about it. He's like, because he does that podcast with Zealand, and Zealand is like, hey, it's like, so what they did? They show you a PowerPoint or something? He's like, yeah, actually they did. And it's like you get the slideshow on the city and all this stuff. But I mean, and that part I'm sure is fairly dry and just not a whole lot going on. But like the actual, like, feeling good about the people around there to support you and like seeing what the resources are and all that stuff is really important. A lot of these guys have families. Like, as we learned with Shapi Suleimanov recently, like his whole, like his partner, his daughter, and his parents are here.
Yeah.
That we can do that is a competitive advantage, mm-hmm. right? Like, that kind of stuff is really important to these players, and
to some of them, right?
To some of them, right?
Like, no, but you're not moving to Miami to go raise your family, right?
No, but that's my point. Is like, if you want them to move to Kansas City, you probably want to lean in on that.
Yeah,
right?
That's absolutely a selling point.
You want to give them that feeling of like, this is a legitimate place where you can grow up and live. And yeah, I know that he just signed with RSL, but like, you can like get Johnny Russell or Andre Fontes moved back to Barcelona. Maybe not the best example. Daniel Shalhoui moved here from Hungary. He's now an American citizen. Mm-hmm. Right? And you know he's not going anywhere. Roger Espinosa, like there are these guys around the club that can be like, hey, look, like, this is a place where you can live. Yeah. And like, they just, I don't know how advanced the process is. But this is a sell job. Like, you have to sell these players
Yes.
on this being a place they want to be. And you have to look at it that way. You are recruiting them like as almost like if you're trying to recruit a college player to
Absolutely.
come join your university. And I don't know how advanced that process is within the club right now.
I mean, I don't know. I'm gonna guess not very advanced, but there's an owner, a partial owner who, if that dude picked you up at the airport, it'd be pretty hard to say no.
It certainly would, but I mean, I think those are DPs. That I mean, Patrick Mahomes isn't picking up the guy you signed
No,
for $600,000.
You're right. You're right.
Like,
You're right. But I mean,
But you could get Patrick to send a freaking face, like a video message or something.
sure, absolutely.
Like, I'm sure he would do that. Like, that would take like 2 seconds to be like, "Hey, dude, can you help us a little bit on the recruiting side? I don't understand. You don't. I mean, like, Patrick is a fairly non-public member of the ownership group, right? Like,
Right.
yes, he's invested in the team, but they also, I feel like his ownership stake was also for branding purposes. So, like, at some level, you got to be like, hey, can you shoot this guy a text? Can you shoot him a video message and be like, hey, we're really excited about
Prime the
about you
pump a
coming
little
in?
bit there.
Yeah. Trust me, all those fucking guys know who he is.
Yes, they do.
So yeah, you're right. There are opportunities, I think, for them to be a little bit more aggressive about the recruiting practice, because I think it's going to be necessary. Because there's just so many stories I've heard about signings that just never really went, or like potential signings that never really went anywhere because of the fact that it's just like so hard. Like, and it goes back to Peter talking about this. Like, if I can get them on the plane, they'll stay. Well, getting them on the plane is a skill.
Yep.
And it's a skill we need to get better at. Like, instead of complaining about the fact that it's hard to get them on the plane, figure out a process by which you're more successful at doing so.
Yeah, and they have to figure out how to do it, because it's not going to get easier, right? There are more teams in MLS.
There's 30
and,
fucking teams in this league,
it's
and
insane.
Sporting is ass. Not only are they in a weird place in the country that nobody knows about, they're ass.
Yeah.
Like, it'd be different if Sporting had, like, all the stuff about them winning all these trophies was, the last trophy they won was 8 years ago.
Yeah.
We can't use that as a mechanism anymore to recruit. So it needs to be more about, like, here's what our project is, and being able to effectively message it and explain, like, here's our solutions and here's how we think you fit. I've been in sales for 20 some odd years, so it's like, it's something that I think about from that perspective. It's like, you need to be considering what that person wants that you're talking to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
As much as you're considering what they can give you, you need to be considering what you can give to them.
Yeah.
So that you're not down to the fourth person down on your wants list and just sort of signing someone that fits a need.
I mean,
and I
you're,
think that
you're
has
being
been
pretty generous with even that. I would have said you're not, like, scrounging the scrap heap of players who are out of contract or coming off injury,
or taking a loan because Willie Agata wanted to leave for a guy that may or may not be any good, right? Like,
Right.
I can appreciate at least that they've given themselves plenty of outs with a lot of these signings lately. So it's not like a situation where they're really super tied to anyone, which is good. But also, like, we need to start building up these guys that you want to give a 3-year contract to because you're so stoked about them coming.
Right.
And you can get them on a deal that's reasonable and gives you some options for the future, as opposed to, hey, maybe this guy works out, and if so, we hit a home run. But I mean, we've got to start like being a little bit more professional about this stuff and providing, and addressing significant needs in the roster. And they can do that. Like, they have the flexibility to do that in a variety of different ways this summer. So I'm hopeful that some folks are recognizing that, and it's not just some, 3 bland ass slides on a PowerPoint saying, hey, you should come to Kansas City.
And a barbecue sauce sampler.
Yeah, no shit. Jesus. Like, you got to get to know these players better than that and try to have a personal connection with them. That's what scouts are for. Like, that is literally what they're for. Yes, they're trying to identify players, but they're also trying to get to know that player so that you can help bring them forward. And
Absolutely.
I'm hopeful that is continuing to grow within the club, because it's going to be a necessity for the team to continue some level of success.
Yep.
Okay, let's move on to potpourri, just like your favorite Jeopardy category. We're going to discuss a couple topics in and around the Sporting Kansas City MLS soccer sphere. I crunched some Y Scout on Santi Munoz. He was in training this week.
You are such a nerd.
Well, I mean, I'm trying to give the people what they want. Like, I'm trying to give them the information. Like, this is what I do.
You are the one that wanted the information.
Well, I did want the information, but then I want to tell everybody about the information that I found.
What did you learn, Drew?
What did I learn? I learned that he's kind of a 9.5. I didn't see much of his finishing skills because Santos is booty, and a lot of his touches were a long ways away from the goal. So gave me some 2024 Alan Polito vibes from that perspective, which was not great. But he does have significantly higher technical skill on the ball than Polito ever did, and obviously way better than Willie Agata. So, like, his ability to control the ball in tight spaces is really good. I don't like his hold-up play that much, but again, he was coming back to receive like 40 yards from goal. He'd get hard pressure on his back, and just like turning out of it is not really something that I saw him do a whole lot of passes backwards from that position. But when he's facing goal, he's a pretty good player that creates problems for opponents. He likes to move around the field a lot. So he's definitely will get to either side of the box and whatnot. Santos would use him as a 10 sometimes. But mostly as a center forward is how he played for them, at least in the stuff I saw, which is all from this most recent season of Liga MX. So I don't think that he's going to blow anybody's mind.
Yeah.
But I think he's a fine backup center forward option.
Is he a backup number 10 option?
Potentially. Maybe if it's Radoja and Bartlett, maybe. Yeah, like what sort of turns into a sort of double pivot, even though it's not really.
Would he be better at that, more suited to that than Eric Tommy?
For combining, for sure.
Yeah.
Like his ability to dribble out of pressure and then find a pass is much better than Eric Tommy's, in my opinion.
So when you
Sperry seemed to like his finishing skills in practice, but I mean it's practice, so
it's practice. Yeah. When you shared your thoughts about him initially when you watched it, I mean that was my thought was that we really need to have a competent quality backup for Manu Garcia. I'm much more worried about that than I am.
I would prefer him to Memo Rodriguez. Let me put it that way.
I'm much more worried about that than I am about the center forward thing, because I mean, shit, Kyrie Shelton could play center forward. Stop! Don't laugh.
70 people just started screaming at their freaking.
Mason Toy can play center forward. Shit, Eric Tommy could probably do it for a game or whatever.
He's done it before. He's played it as kind of a quote unquote false nine.
Right. So like I'm not worried about the backup center forward. I am super worried about backup for Manu Garcia.
I'm not sure they signed him with that idea in mind, but he could certainly do it. I'll be interested to see if Kerry thinks that that's something he can do. I don't get the feeling they signed him with the intent of him being the backup to Manu Garcia. The stuff I saw on film leads me to believe that it is a skill set that would work in that circumstance. He's not going to be near as dynamic of a passer. Like, there's a chasm between what I mean, and remember, I hit Y Scout on Manu Garcia when we signed him, and I told you then that I was extremely excited about this guy's passing vision. I don't think that Santi Munoz is anything close to that, but he's not bad, and he's different, right? Like he would be a different type of player in that position. Whether he's better or not than Eric Tommy at it is, I don't know, probably up for, I don't know. I don't know that I can make that determination. He's definitely better than Memo Rodriguez would be at it. So I think that from that perspective, maybe so, but
it's kind of a weird and random loan signing. It's just, especially for a team that does not or has not traditionally gotten players on loan like that. It's just, I don't know. It just seems kind of strange and random to me.
Yeah, I mean, I think
I mean, he does share a an agent with Alan Polito, which
right.
probably, yeah,
That has a lot to do with, I'm sure, why he was brought up as available,
yeah.
and why the team knew he was available. How much scouting they did before signing him, I have no idea. I mean, it may have just been a situation where Willie was moving and they needed to get somebody, and he was available. That very well could have been it. I will say that, yeah, this team has not historically done loans, but this team has not historically had someone else other than Peter Vermees making
Right.
these decisions,
Right.
right? So it's like so much of what we are used to is going to be challenged over the next, months and years because we're just so used to the Peter Vermees way of doing things.
Yeah.
Kansas City Current. We gassed them up last week and talked about how much better they were than everyone in NWSL, and I guess we're responsible for jinxing them and them losing by giving up 2 stoppage time goals to North Carolina. Yeah, I mean, Temwa having to come off with injury. It sounds like she's okay, but that was not great. Nichelle Prince and Michelle Cooper being unavailable.
Yeah.
Like it did show that their depth only goes so far.
Mm-hmm.
Bia getting a goal, that was good. Like I like that, and there was some good stuff in the game. But yeah, I mean, I don't know what to say other than shit happens, I guess, and maybe we shouldn't be so quick to talk about how much they're going to dominate the league.
I mean, they could still end up dominating the league, but maybe not undefeated.
Well, obviously not undefeated at this point. Well, last thing in potpourri, as we're recording this, it is halftime in the Inter Miami Vancouver game for the CONCACAF Champions Cup. Like, whoever wins this matchup will go to the final against either, who is it, Tigres or Cruz Azul? Is that who it is, I think?
Yeah, that's who
Okay.
it is.
Miami did score early in this one. Some guy named Jordi Alba scored a goal. Don't know who that is, but he must be good. So we'll have to see if Vancouver can hold on to this one. That they are obviously a very fun team. There's a really good article from, I think it's from Jeff Reuter in The Athletic about Sebastian Berhalter and kind of his whole kind of progression, and then him talking about actually training with his dad during COVID and how it like really helped him in his progression, which I thought was interesting because based on the interview, it doesn't sound like Greg really would get involved in his training or any of that stuff. Just tried to let him do his own thing and like earn it and do it on his own. But it was just an interesting article. I'm struggling at some level with The Athletic because they continue to keep firing writers I like, Pablo Maurer being the latest one of them.
Yeah,
So
no
it's
kidding.
like it's getting a little frustrating. It seems to me, based on people I know in the industry, that they, when they really when they got bought by the New York Times and moved all of their soccer writing to be run out of England, that those folks don't really seem to care that much about American soccer writers, which sucks, but I don't know. We'll see. Anyway, that article is good. So if you kept your Athletic subscription, it is a good one. Going deep on Sebastian Berhalter, who's obviously a key part of this Vancouver team and is playing extremely well this season.
Yeah.
But yeah, we'll have to see. I'm obviously sort of, from my perspective, hoping that Vancouver moves on because I just think that their story is really cool. And I think they play really good soccer. Like, I really enjoy the soccer they play. So, we'll have to see if they're able to hang on here. And I mean, obviously this will date this podcast quite a bit, but we'll have to see what happens in the second half.
When does Vancouver visit Sporting Kansas City?
I don't know. I know when they play in Vancouver because I'm going to that game, but I don't know when they come here.
Oh.
You would have to.
Have you ever been to Vancouver before?
I have not, so I'm very excited for it.
It's beautiful, man.
And it's late July, so it's going to be
It's
gorgeous.
going to be
there.
great. Oh my goodness!
I'm so excited. I'm so excited
I'm
it's going to be
jealous.
It's going to be so fucking nasty here. And I'm like, I'm going to Vancouver. So I'm looking forward to that. But yeah, I have not. We had considered going there. So this is like going way down the rabbit hole of life stuff. But my wife and I were very excited we were trying to get tickets to the Wu-Tang tour. And that they're doing their final tour for about 3 months this summer. And they're not coming anywhere near Kansas City, so we're just like, well, what would be sort of the fun like destination location to go? And we actually considered going to Vancouver because they're playing a show there, and thought it would be really fun. But ended up actually getting tickets to Madison Square Garden. So
wow, that's gonna be great.
Yeah,
you're just living the dream, Drew.
Yeah,
right.
there's some fun stuff there. So yeah, we're getting to see Wu-Tang at Madison Square Garden, which will be really fun.
That is pretty sweet.
But that is
Vancouver.
A couple weeks.
Vancouver visits Sporting at September 20th. Just
okay. Well, it's something to keep. Like they're a very good team and they're very fun. It'll be interesting to see where they're at that point in the season.
Yeah.
Because we're in the kind of home stretch for the playoffs at that point. So it'll be interesting to see like what that game means to Sporting and what it means to Vancouver at that point in time for sure.
Yeah.
Let's move on to one thing to look for. Let's preview the LA Galaxy. It is one of the few teams worse in the league worse than Sporting, which is saying something. I mean, they are terrible, man. Yeah. They're booty. All of their difficulties have been well documented by a number of people. Mark Machado went deep on their whole salary cap situation. They basically had to do a GAM payday loan to get cap compliant before the window. Like there's just a lot of stuff there that sort of forced them to make a lot of decisions that they didn't really want to make. But that means that their roster is just not in a good place comparatively to last year. And it's not just Ricky Puig. Like obviously Ricky Puig is a big part of it. Obviously, but Dejan Joveljic, their top goal scorer, plays for us now, right? Yep. And has been replaced by Christian Ramirez, who's just not Dejan Joveljic, like not even close. Their midfield, which is obviously missing Ricky Puig, and is generally being replaced by Diego Fagundes, who is just not Ricky Puig. Not Ricky Puig. But it's also Mark Delgado and Gaston Brugman are gone.
Yeah.
And that is like now like Edwin Cerrillo and Isaiah Parent.
Yeah.
Or Sanabria or somebody like they're just not even close to the quality that they were from top to bottom. And hats off to Will Kuntz for like figuring out a way to get that whole team under the cap last year, but there was literally no fucking way they could have kept that together for more than one season.
Yeah.
So there they are, and you're basically at the point now where they're kind of like Sporting Kansas City, where they have two really dangerous players, and if you can limit those, you're good. And unlike Sporting Kansas City, they're on the wings, so you can just sort of stay narrow.
Usher them out.
And usher them out. And that's what most teams have been doing against them. I feel like Peck has played center forward a little bit so they could try to do something different, but that doesn't seem to has helped much. And I just think that there's if Sporting is able to transition defend the way they did against Cincinnati in the second half, as well as just keep their shape narrow, I like the way they've been playing lately does seem to be like at least a structure by which they could limit LA. It's not to say that LA isn't dangerous, and it's not to say either of those guys couldn't just Kevin Denkey us. Yeah. Like that 100% could happen. So it's not to say that I'm predicting anything tomorrow or anything, not tomorrow, anything this weekend. But it was like, it does feel like at least a team that Sporting should expect a result against.
Yeah, like I mentioned earlier, Sporting is at home. This is as you mentioned, a drastically weaker Galaxy team, and you didn't even talk about their defense, and their defense is still not great. It wasn't great last year, but their offense was good enough to compensate for that. But
Well, and they had an unreal sort of ball manager in Pooch. So
yeah,
not only is he so great progressing the ball, but he's extremely press resistant. They don't give up turnovers. They put their defense in a bad space. That is not the case anymore. Their defense has to deal with a lot of transition events, and that they're like Sporting. They struggle with that.
and Sporting is improving on attacking in transition, and so I mean I think it's a good test, honestly. These are two teams that are not that great, and so where do they stack up against one another, right? So I probably say this every game this season, but like I'm still just really in sort of watch and hope for development and hope for improvement, and continue to hope that Jansen Miller and Jacob Bartlett do the things that they need to do to improve, and then continue to hope that we can get the designated players involved the way that they should be. And it'd be great to see Joveljic come out and have a good game, not only because it's Galaxy, but also because he didn't have the greatest game last weekend, so it'd be good to see a bounce back game from him. How about you? What are you looking for?
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to see Daniel Shalhoub get a little bit more joy than he did against Cincinnati, and I think he'll. I don't know. Mickey Imane is a good player, and then so that might be a struggle for him. But I think that there's. I'm sort of confused by what Greg Vanney's doing with this team, given its roster situation, and he continues to trot out. He's doing the Vermees, where he's like continuing to trot out 34 and 35-year-old players that he's familiar with, as opposed to like they have Mauricio Cuevas, right? They have Lucas Sanabria, they have Julian Aude, and none of these guys see the field until they get subbed on. And I think I'm warmed by the fact that Sporting, from the beginning of this season, even when Vermees was in charge, has very significantly focused on putting the young guys out there and getting them development, and we're starting to see the benefits of that. So like that's really what I'm looking for, is continuing to see that evolution of Jansen Miller, of Jacob Bartlett. Sorry, Lucas Bartlett plays for the DC United. Of Jacob Bartlett, of Logan and
Lucas, you mean Lucas Bartlett, future teammate of Paul Pogba? That's what you mean.
Supposedly, we'll see. Yeah, man, DC United is so fucking. They're so messy, man. Jesus Christ. Anyway, like I think Jacob Bartlett, Jansen Miller, Logan and Denbei, even Robbie Volliter, I'd like to see him continue to improve. Like even if I think. Unfortunately, Robbie Volliter's time in Kansas City is limited to this season. But I think that there are a number of players we're seeing improve. Also, seems like Jake Davis might be at least available for some minutes this weekend, if not all. I mean, maybe not. Maybe he's not starting, but he's in full training again. So it sounds like that, whatever was going on with him wasn't too bad, which is nice. If
they're going to try and bring him in and have him play right back, they can leave him on the bench.
No, they're not going to do that. They're not going to do that. No, I don't think they're going to do that. This is not Peter Vermees, okay? Calm down.
I'm sorry, I have a little bit of PTSD.
Yeah. It's gonna be hard to get rid of that PTSD. It's gonna take a while. I didn't say this when I was talking about the roster building stuff, but as much as I'm like sort of whatever about Santi Munoz, he's a loan that we're not really bought into, and he's a player that can fill a role in the meantime while the team looks to do something else, and maybe he turns out into something and they bring him on and he's a good player for us long term. But even if he's not, getting $500K in GAM from Willie Agata at a minimum is good business, right? I think what we've seen from Mike Burns is like, while maybe not everything has been earth shattering, the signings he's made have made sense.
Yep.
And the movements he's made out have made sense. And I think that similarly on the field, Kerry Zavagnin's choices make sense.
Mm-hmm.
When you hear him talk after the game, all the shit is stuff that basically is what I saw. And I'm just so like, I used to feel sometimes gaslit by Vermees, where he's like saying some stuff. I'm like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
And it's just so like nice to just feel like the people around this club are just normal, right? They just, they just sort of get it. They just sort of like, they're not talking shit. They're just like saying what it is, and being straightforward about it, and being very candid and clear, and not trying to sell us a line of bullshit. And it's nice. And I think that from that perspective, I feel good about the direction of this team. So like, if you're asking me what I'm looking for, it's that continued progress. We saw it against Cincinnati. I'm not expecting everyone to play perfectly.
No.
I'm just expecting progress, and I'm expecting those connections to get better. I'd really like to see the right side of the offense get a little bit more. Like I said, in the second half of the game, it got a little bit better. So maybe those underlapping runs by Kyrie to give. I really think they've got to do something to create a situation where Shoppy is not, because every defense knows that he's going to go to his left, and they just sort of push him to his left foot where the help is, right? Yep. They create help on that side, and they just push him to that side. There's got to be more off-ball movement to pull those defenses free, as well as give him a passing option when they do that. And I like those underlapping runs by Kyrie to do that, and I think that's a good way to get him involved in the offense, because I just don't think Kyrie is a guy who is naturally going to pass into small windows and combine in that way, like break apart a set defense by passing through small windows.
Yeah.
So maybe there's an opportunity there to get him into that underlap or overlap to the side, to the end line, and a cutback. So I'd like to see a little bit more progression on the right side in the offense for sure.
That sounds good. Are you going to be wearing your Chewbacca outfit?
No, I'm not. I do. My wife does have a Star Wars themed hoodie but I don't know if it's going to be the right weather for that, so we'll have to see.
I think it is. I think it's going to be actually really nice. From what I remember, like low 70s, mid 70s.
Well, it's not really hoodie weather.
And no rain, which, getting a game in a window with no rain at this time of year in Kansas City is
especially over the last couple of weeks here, like that's a narrow window to pull it off. So hopefully we will all get to enjoy it. Hopefully it'll be a fun Star Wars day, Sunday Night Soccer. Andrew Wiebe in town. We'll have to see what kind of random things he found to get himself into while he's here, returning amongst us regular Kansas Cityans. And it hopefully is a lot of fun. And on that note, I'm Drew. He's Cody. We will talk to y'all next week.
Go Sporting.
Start doing day.